Welcome back to another Lich King card review. This is our second to last card review. I had to sneak this one in so that we could stay at an even number. I didn't want to finish on part 13. We're going to finish on part 14 in the next review. But this time around, we've got Arcane Hunter stuff, including this pretty crazy looking Arcane Hunter legendary. Now, just as a reminder, one of the first cards revealed was actually Arcane Quiver a few weeks ago in the very first batch of reveals. This is also some Arcane synergy stuff, just reminding you that this exists alongside 5 new cards that are all going to support this archetype. So this is a way to give spell damage to some arcane spells. This guy is certainly a way to give spell damage to some arcane spells. Halderon Brightwing is a 3-mana 3/4 battlecry. Give all arcane spells in your deck spell damage +1, and this is not going to be the only way to give your arcane spells spell damage. So we're talking about here some potential, like, you know, spell damage +1. If you get this down early, this is kind of like a Keleseth for your spells, right? Just making everything crazy. And I don't think that the arcane spells Hunter is getting are so weak that like they need spell damage to be competitive. I think they're actually pretty solid at a base level. So this spell damage is meaningful, right? Like this is actually making the spells really strong, I think, once it rolls through. And then, you know, as we saw with this card we're going to talk about in a second, there's 2 of these in your deck. You could very easily give cards +3 spell damage just at a base, and for lots of them. And some of these cards are going to do some crazy things with spell damage. We're going to talk about some spells that scale really nicely off of the spell damage. So yeah, needless to say, if this guy's coming down on turn 3, that's going to feel like a very powerful play. It is one, you know, that's going to take some card draw to support, because you need to draw into these cards that have now been given spell damage. It might take, you know, a few turns of drawing these highly powered things to be meaningful. But, you know, if this is being played on curve in particular, you're going to have some time in a given game. You're going to have 4 or 5 turns most of the time to find those powerful things, and you might even build the deck with a little bit more survivability to go even deeper than that, or maybe you'll just kill your opponent by then if you're able to put together enough damage. I don't think there's enough arcane cards here to be an entire deck in and of itself, but certainly a complementary package, maybe fused together with some other ways to do damage, could really make this pretty scary. There is always that risk of consistency here with Halderon Brightwing, because this is a one-of. It's just a legendary without some way to find this or tutor into this specifically. If you're not hitting this early in the game, is your deck going to fall flat on its face without this spell damage upside? Do you need this to hit 4 or 5 cards? Do you need this to be there for your deck to work? I think the deck will still look okay. A lot of these cards seem fine at a base, and then this just offers you those like really big crazy wins, much like Keleseth would do when you hit him on 2 back in the day. The deck could compete without it and then would just dominate when hit on curve, and I have a feeling Halderon Brightwing might do very much the same for Arcane Hunter. So let's talk about the Silvermoon Farstrider here. This is a 2-mana 2/3 battlecry. Give all arcane spells in your hand spell damage +1. So another way here to scale up your arcane spells, and this one happens a little bit faster than Halderon. You don't have to draw into all these resources. So I think this will be a nice way to keep things moving in the early to mid game, where you're not falling too far behind. You're scaling up a spell or 2 that might be removal based, might just help you keep in the game early while setting up for some of those bigger damage hits and bigger swings later off the back of additional spell damage cards. So just get a little River Crocolisk down and buff, you know, 2 cards in hand's probably going to feel fine. I don't think you need to have like a giant hand for this to feel amazing. As long as you're getting 1 maybe key big thing and maybe 1 thing to just help you shore up the tempo early, that's probably going to be enough. I don't think you need absolutely bonkers results here. If you think about it, very often when we have spell damage cards, they're really only kind of affecting 1 spell anyway, sometimes 2 or 3 in like a combo deck. But if you're playing them early in the game, yeah, you're probably happy with 1 spell. And this could very easily hit 1 to 3, I think, quite often. So yeah, I think this will create some pretty powerful opportunities in the early to mid game. So this is one of the payoff cards here. This is the Eversong Portal. This is a 4-mana spell. It's arcane, of course. Summons 1 4/4 links with Rush, and that is improved by spell damage. And I think you're going to get more than 1 links, not scale the stats here, but particularly because of that artwork showing 3 lynxes. So yeah, if you play a Silver Moon Farstrider on turn 2, you might be able to coin into this on turn 3 and get 2 4/4s with Rush right away. That's going to help you win some crazy boards. So even though this deck is all spell based, it can still make some potentially scary minions in the early game. And of course, you could even do nutty things like, you know, have a Halderon buff one of these and then play 2 Silver Moon Farstriders. You've got +3 spell damage on your Eversong portal. That could be 4 4/4s for only 4 mana. It might come down a little more in the mid game, but still, that is a big old pile of stats for 4 mana. I think actually the sweet spot will probably be supporting this a little bit less from a spell damage standpoint, but getting it down as soon as possible just to make sure you're swinging really hard early enough in the game. But yeah, this card looks like it's really high potential to snowball some victories pretty early on the back of like a couple Silver Moon Farstriders or maybe just a good turn 3 portal. Both of those seem really high potential to me. So next up here we have the Conjured Arrow, another arcane spell. Of course, this is a 2 mana spell. This one's going to deal 2 damage to a minion, and if you're at mana thirst 6, so once you get to 6 mana, this will draw that many cards. So at a base, this would be deal 2 to a minion and draw 2 cards. That's pretty great as is. But then, of course, with spell damage, this quickly becomes deal 3, draw 3. That is insane. Deal 4, draw 4 is certainly a possibility. That is insane. And I think very, very often, of course, you're going to want to hold this until the mana thirst is active because that is just a ridiculous amount of card draw. So basically, I think, you know, you make this early setup with Farstriders, maybe some portals to get things rolling. And if that doesn't get there, if that's not enough to just overwhelm your opponent with those 4/4 bodies and just chip for 1 billion damage, then you've got the Conjured Arrow here as a way to essentially reload and find more damage, find more cards, find more ways to buff your arcane spells, etc. So this gives you that kind of backup plan and card draw that Hunter has often lacked. They don't have a ton of great card draw historically. This looks like it could be absolutely insane card draw. And don't sleep on the fact that this is dealing damage too. So it's still kind of keeping you up on board a little bit while hitting those resources, while getting that second wind essentially to do some crazy stuff. So this much card draw, this just looks really, really strong. Card draw is amazing, and this has a lot of potential, I think, yet again. So then finally for Hunter here, we have the Ricochet Shot. This is a 1 mana arcane spell. This one's going to deal 1 damage to 3 random enemies. Now, do note that's a little bit different than like an arcane missiles. That does mean it's not going to hit the same enemy 3 times. It's going to find 3 distinct enemies. If there aren't, it'll just hit which ones are available. But of course, when you start scaling this with spell damage, that quickly becomes deal 2 damage to 3 random enemies, or deal 3 damage to 3 random enemies. And then you've got yourself a, you know, nice little board clear type card that can wipe out a few early game minions, maybe even get a little bit of chip damage face as you start to whittle down your opponent. Or in desperation, of course, maybe that 2 or 3 damage face is really all you need, and this is kind of like an arcane shot, assuming your opponent's board is empty enough to make that work consistently. But yeah, clearly at a base level, not the most exciting card, right? A really unreliable, just 3 pings is rarely going to feel great. Might be decent in the Reborn Death Knight era, but still probably not going to feel amazing. And then as you get, you know, +1 spell damage, +2, +3, this card starts to look really amazing really, really quickly because you're basically multiplying that spell damage across each of these hits and getting extra oomph out of each spell damage. So I think this is maybe not my most exciting card here of the Hunter Arcane set, but still probably feels like it's a part of the deck. Feels like you probably got to run this one just because it does fit fairly well, even if it's not individually the most powerful or exciting. And then finally here we had 1 rogue card sneaking in. This kind of got left out of the reviews. Blizzard did a little nice little goofy review on Twitter. This is Ghostly Strike. We saw this leaked in the Death Knight show match. This is just a great rogue card, just perfect. Deal 1 damage, combo, draw a card. That's exactly what rogue likes. They like cheap things they can cycle through. This checks so many boxes for the class. I think this will show up in a wide array of rogue decks all throughout its lifespan. I think Rogue's gonna love this across archetypes. So yes, this just looks like a really, really good card for Rogue. Halderon Brightwing is a 4-star card. Silver Moon Farstrider is a 4-star card. Eversong Portal is a 4-star card. Conjured Arrow is a 4-star card. Ricochet Shot is a 3-star card. Ghostly Strike is a 5-star card. Yeah, giving the 5 stars to Ghostly Strike because I think it's just going to be in like every rogue deck. It's not going to be the build around, but it will be absolutely pervasive for the class. I think I think this card's going to show up a lot. So that said, that is Arcane Hunter. That is our second to last March of the Lich King card review. Curious to hear what you guys think about these. Is this going to be enough to get there or not? Share those thoughts some more in the comments below. But until then, thanks so much for watching. And until next time, game on.